Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. It's another brutal day in the market. We have a lot of selling pressure just continuing, and it's not looking too good today, guys. We have just basically every stock in the red. We have stocks like NEO down almost 7%. Palantir is bleeding off. Tesla, Apple, everything is in the red today. Looking at one of them specifically is Tesla, Tom. Like, Tesla is down 4%. I saw a couple people eyeing this one up in the Discord, but yeah, Tom, it's not looking too good. It's really just that, I guess you could say, panic/fear really kind of controlling the market. Like, if we look at the TNX today, which is rates are not even, like, rates have been falling over the past couple days, yet the market continues to just sell off in a brutal way.
Yeah, it really does. It's awful to see. Once again, we wake up and see all these stocks down in a major way. I know there was a couple doing well, like KSS. They had some good news this morning. They're up 31% for just to find one stock that's moving in a good way. But man, it sucks to see. We have good old AMC, Mike, down to $16 again, down another 10% this morning. We have Matterport down 8% again. Like, this stock just keeps selling off. I know this stock was getting a lot of hype for a while too, and man, it's really sold off the past few days. I just cannot believe the amount of selling pressure we're seeing from the overall market, and even out of stocks like Apple and Microsoft. Like, look at these stocks on the daily chart. They're starting to get pretty low here and test some pretty good support. So we'll have to see how the market ends up doing this week. We all know Powell's going to be speaking Wednesday at that FOMC press conference, and I'm really curious to see what they talk about, Mike. Like you said, the rates haven't really been moving too much on their own, and I'm wondering if the Fed is going to start to raise their benchmark.
Yeah, I'm curious, because Powell's looking at this market and it's like, wow, so hopefully Powell comes in clutch and brings the market back up, but I know the market itself is like finally starting to like turn over, and I believe last week was one of the worst weeks in the market since March of 2020. But Tom, like, let's say we look at a company like Palantir, for example. Palantir, or like Zoom or DraftKings or whatever. These stocks have been crashing over the past couple months. Like, the market itself has been doing very well over the past couple of months. These stocks have been crashing, and these stocks are not the only stocks that are doing that. I think it was like 40 or 50% of all of the NASDAQ traded stocks are down at least 50% from their highs. It was some statistic like that, and I'm sure now it's even worse, but like, it goes to show you that, we have some of the big companies like Apple, Microsoft, and Nvidia that have really been holding the market higher, and some of the other companies are just getting absolutely destroyed. So hopefully Powell steps in and gets some good sentiment back.
Yeah, I really hope so. And it seems like that some of these tech stocks are down around some pretty big supports. Like or I should say Nvidia here has a huge support at $200 even, which is coming up, and they just moved below the like 230 support, and there is some support around like 225. So looking at it, I mean, I think Nvidia might be able to have a bounce here over the next couple of days, maybe AMD as well. Like, this selling pressure is just starting to get so explosive to the downside. Like, we'd almost have to look for a couple green days here or there, and maybe Powell will, be a good cheerleader for the market. He's been making the market pop almost every time he speaks. So I don't know. We'll just have to see how it ends up going, but I'm with you. It's going to be a crazy time, especially for these big tech stocks. Like you said, they've really been holding up the market, and it just sucks to see them starting to really sell off here. I know Apple's kind of coming back up today at market open, but we just keep seeing this terrible pre-market movement every day, and it's terrible to see. We saw futures last night starting to sell off, and it just made for a pretty bloody open this week. I'm really hoping that Powell can turn it around, but just like looking at the SPY here on the daily chart, I'm trying to find some pretty big support levels coming up, and it looks like the SPY has a pretty big one coming up right around, like, I don't know what level this is, like 426, 427, somewhere right around there. Looks like we might be able to bounce here, but I don't know. If we break below this, it's going to get pretty scary.
Yeah, what's been really disappointing about the past couple days, it's like we have no green days sprinkled in the mix. Like, I know there were a couple like 2 weeks ago, but last week was literally just straight selling pressure. And it's even worse for the growth stocks. Like, let's say we went to, like, let's say Palantir, for example. That's a pretty good example. Like, it's been basically just a nonstop downtrend for literally weeks, like week after week after week, day after day. So, I mean, it'd be nice if we could just finally start to hold levels, you know what I mean? Instead of just continuously selling off. But on a more positive note, the lower these stocks go, the better the opportunity it is for the long term. Like, I know the short term sucks and it's stressful looking at all these different stocks getting destroyed. But, if we think about, I don't know, maybe a year down the line, or 5 years down the line, or 10 years down the line, if we think about it, there's a lot of good stocks at good levels right now, and ultimately the lower they go, the better return that we can have in the future if we do buy the dip.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And some of these sectors are amazing. Like, we have these solar companies like Enphase and First Solar out here like at amazing levels right now, especially compared to all-time highs. Like, I can't believe how low some of these are. And, these are stocks that should do pretty well in the future. I know some people don't like solar and some people prefer nuclear and, there's all that stuff. But in the end, though, solar will probably be pretty big in the future. And so these companies are honestly pretty low right now, especially Enphase. Like, I can't believe we're at $120 and we were just at $282 just a few months ago. Like, that's over 100% back to the upside there. So I like these levels a lot, especially in some of these growth sectors. I really like some of these charging stocks like BLNK, CHPT. I like these ones down here at lows as well. But once again, I mean, they're just in that growth sector that just keeps selling off. So, like you said, Mike, you have to be able to look at this for the next 5 to 10 years. And I really think that some of these sectors are going to start getting a lot more integrated over the next 5 years, like the solar sector, the EV sector, and stuff like that. And we've already seen stocks like Ford explode up on their EV news. And, they're honestly falling back down to some pretty good levels too.
Tom, I don't know if you saw this or not, but I saw some rumors that Cathie Wood is shorting Ford and GM. Let me just confirm this really quickly. Give me 1 second.
Wow, that would actually be insane if she shorted Ford and GM. I mean, I know she's big into Tesla, but wow, I mean, if it's a short-term trade, I guess I understand. But for the longer term, I don't know if I do that. But, I don't know. She hasn't been doing too hot lately, so maybe she needs this.
Yeah, so I just looked it up. I was reading a couple things this weekend about her shorting Ford and GM. I'm not seeing anything that confirms it 100% on Google, but it's not giving me recent articles either. But I don't know. I thought that she was. So I guess we'll just keep an eye on these two. And I'll do some more research after the stream to verify that. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. Instead of trimming Tesla or trimming something else, she's going short. So I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. I mean, if we look at Ford on the max daily chart, they are up quite a bit over the past few years. Personally, I could see the short happening, but I think she's a little late. I mean, it already dropped from 25 all the way back down to 20. I don't think I'd want to short it right here. Maybe if she got in up here, I could understand. But yeah, it's just, I don't know what to think about it. I've seen a lot of people loving Ford lately. And honestly, if they come out with some good numbers and stuff, they might start to explode in a pretty big way. I know Ford and GM have been getting pretty established in the EV market. And I really think that they could end up turning around. I know both of them have been going down over the past week, but if we look at even Tesla, it's been going down the past week also. So, I feel like that they're all just kind of moving in sympathy here.
Yeah, I mean, basically everything is. All stocks are just getting destroyed now. So it looks like we have a couple comments coming in related to Cathie short. We have Vicky saying, great strategy from Cathie. I read about the logic behind it. And then Martha said she mentions she would short Ford and GM. So I actually I watched a YouTube video too. I think it was from Kaz Gaines Academy. And it was a pretty good video. I think it's called Cathie Wood Shocked Wall Street with her new, Big Short, I think. Something like that. And it goes over what she's doing in a more in-depth way. So feel free to check that out. But either way, we'll keep this situation monitored. Because I thought that was pretty interesting. We have Hunter saying the ETF that shorts Cathie is crushing it over the past few months. SARK, Tom. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, it has been doing pretty well. I mean, in Kathy's defense, basically all stocks are getting destroyed, but then I know some people are saying that she bought stocks that were definitely overvalued. But either way, this ETF went from like $30 all the way up to 50.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty big gain actually over the past I should say like 6 months or so, I guess. It looks pretty good. And if we look at like the ARKK, it obviously is like a pretty good inverse to that. But I will say though, over the past few years, the ARKK has been growing quite a bit as well. So I don't know, it's hard to say, but yeah, I mean it's definitely selling off in a pretty big way. SARK is definitely doing pretty well, and I'm curious to see how well this one does over the next few months. We can see there's been a lot of volume actually coming into SARK, so that's going to be pretty interesting to see over as these positions start to go. I'm really curious how some of her positions are honestly going to fare, Mike, because we're already so low on some of these stocks. Like let's just use Zoom as an example. We're just already so low. We're falling below some of these big major supports. Like if we end up moving down towards like $100 or so, oh, it's not going to be good for Zoom, DraftKings, anything. Just about all the growth stocks will probably move in sympathy with each other again, and we just need to see it finally hold up somewhere. But yeah, it's not looking good. SARK might be the way to go here, at least in the short term.
Like when we look at some of these plays that Kathy's holding, or even that we're holding, like let's say Zoom is one example. You look at Zoom and you say, all right, over the past, I guess, year or two, this stock went from $588 all the way down to $145. It's like, how much lower can this one go? And like, I understand, like, if you're looking at like a play that is set to do very well over the next 10 years, but like Zoom is already doing very well. Like their fundamentals are pretty good. Like they're doing pretty good. So it's like you wonder, like, how much lower can this thing go? Like, it would be different if the company was doing terribly, but it's like Zoom is still doing very good, yet the stock just falls every single week. So it's like I'm genuinely curious, Tom. Like, is this panic selling that we're seeing in the market going to drop Zoom to 100? It could. It's just, if it does, it's just going to be a huge opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a really good opportunity. It's just going to suck for everybody in the short term. But yeah, it's a really hard way to think about the market too, because, everybody's so caught up in the here and now, and it's hard for people to kind of look down the road. And, if we look at this in an objective way, like you said, Zoom's been going down pretty much all year. Like almost all of 2021 was down for Zoom. Of course, we went up right at the beginning of the year, very slightly, but then ever since then, it was pretty much down. And looking at it, I could see it turning around pretty soon, Mike, too. And honestly, if it fell to 100, it might happen pretty quick. Like we saw this stock fall from 250 down to 200 in just the matter of 2 days. So who knows? It could be a very quick move here. The IV is starting to shoot through the roof, which means there could be more movement than usual. And it's hard to say, Mike. Like I personally love it for the long term down here for shares, but especially shorting puts with the IV like this. But it's just such a hard way to play it in the short term. Everybody's so worried about that initial sell-off, and we'll just have to see what ends up happening. I think it's great for the longer term as well. And personally, I think even like the SPY is starting to get to good longer term levels. Like if the SPY falls below 425, like I talked about earlier, we might start to see a pretty major sell-off, maybe down towards like 400 or so, and I think that'll make for an amazing opportunity to get into one of the safer indices.
Yep, we shall see, Tom. Crazy stuff. So we have J Deep mentioning Intel. So let's take a look. INTC. This stock has actually been holding up pretty well relative to other companies. Like Intel is more of like I guess you could say it's like a chip stock that's. Tom, I don't know how to word this. Like, it's not like a value. I mean, I guess it's kind of like a value stock, but it's like, it's one of those chip stocks that have just been around for longer, and I feel like they're just like a slower mover. Would you say that's like a fair description of Zoom, or did I mess that up?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think it's a pretty fair description. They've been around for a long time. I'm not going to say they're necessarily a slow mover, because sometimes they have some crazy movement. We can see on the chart here. It's been like a heartbeat monitor the past couple of years, but yeah, I definitely see what you're saying though. Like they've been around a long time, they're more established, and they've been getting hit a lot lately too. Like they have a lot of competition with AMD and Nvidia. And, those two stocks have been on fire, and I will say Intel's been doing a little bit better over the past few months because AMD's been going down a little bit and Intel has been kind of going up. Intel really loves to move almost in an inverse way to AMD. So that's probably why they've been doing a little bit better here. But in the end, though, Intel should be pretty good. They're probably not going to go anywhere. Like Mike said, they've been around for a long time. They have a pretty good pretty good fundamentals. I will say though, they've been getting beaten out by AMD quite a bit the past few years, but keep in mind, in the chip sector, these guys are now researching and developing a whole bunch of stuff. So we'll have to see what they end up coming out with because everybody's always in a race here, with computer stuff. Like AMD's trying to make the faster parts, and then Intel over the next few years might come out with faster parts, and then AMD will have to research and make their own. But yeah, I would definitely agree with what you said, Mike. And I think Intel's a pretty good buy down here personally. I got into it below $50, so I got in a little bit lower, but I like it personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dividend-paying stock. Their earnings are normally pretty good. They're in an industry that is growing so much, and even though they've been lagging behind AMD and Nvidia in a major way, they're at a decent level still. Even though it's at 51, it's still at a decent level, and their industry is just growing so rapidly. So that's always good to see. So it's a pretty decent play. I mean, I know it's probably not going to triple in the next 2 years. I mean, I think it happened, but it's just kind of like one of those less volatile chip stocks.
Yeah, if it does move, maybe over the next couple of years, expect it to maybe come up to 68 to 70, maybe a little bit higher than that. But yeah, I wouldn't expect it to double or triple or anything. We can see actually over the past few years, it's just been really flat between a big range here. There's been a huge range between you could say $45 and $70. You could even say $60 if you don't count these two double tops. But yeah, it's been in a huge range. And honestly, it might start to break out of it eventually. But yeah, whenever it does, it'll be a pretty good play.
Yep, we'll see. So, Tom, checking back in on the market really quickly, how are we looking? How's the SPY doing? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's not looking good. We have major stocks like Netflix going lower. The SPY is turning back over today. We can see on the 1-minute chart, it was holding its ground at market open, and now we're starting to dip down towards 430. I don't know if we'll see a bounce here or if we're going to end up breaking it. Personally, it kind of looks like we might break a little bit lower. Obviously, we're having a bunch of major tech stocks down. The big players, like we talked about, AMD is down 4%. They keep moving lower on their 1-minute chart as well. We got the airlines back in the red. Yeah, it's not looking good today, Mike. We even have some of the slower moving stocks like Starbucks down today, down 1%. They're doing a little bit better than some of the tech stocks, but yeah, even some of the value stocks are down today.
Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunate to see. And I know that you mentioned Netflix. So that was one of the worst performing stocks last week, which was unfortunate to see with their earnings. But when you mentioned Netflix, I was thinking of Peloton too, because they both kind of crashed at the same time. And it looks like Peloton is actually slowly popping back up there. I know it was lingering right around 24 on Thursday, but it looks like it's popping up on a day where there's almost no buying pressure at all.
Yeah, I was actually looking at this one earlier on. I saw them popping up on my watch list. Them and Clorox are two of the only green stocks today. I have AbbVie and Pepsi in the green, but just barely. But yeah, Peloton's up 4.2%. Like you said, almost no stocks are in the green. So it's awesome to see them moving like this. And yeah, they had that bad news come out last week. They took a pretty big drop on that. And I really hope that they can start to turn around soon. We can actually see on the daily chart, there's been some crazy volume coming in last week. So maybe we'll see a turnaround here, Mike. Honestly, I've been waiting for it for a while with Peloton, and it's kind of weird to see them moving up like this. Is there any specific news that came out today?
I know that there were some activist investors that were looking to get a new CEO with Peloton. I just skimmed over that on CNBC this morning. Again, we have all those rumors with Peloton potentially being bought out by Apple, which I don't know how likely that is. But it looks like this morning the main news is they want the CEO gone.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, actually. I can't believe that they want the CEO gone. I mean, I guess, he's been through some pretty bad stuff over the past few years. I guess I should say the past few months, but they had that bad stuff happen with those unfortunate deaths with the machine, and then people getting hurt, and Now they just have like this and that happening. So it's crazy to see how low they've been going and all the bad news that's been coming out. I guess it's not a bad thing to call for new leadership at this point, but yeah, looking at it coming up, I really hope that they start to turn around. And I don't think that this is going to necessarily make them, explode back to the upside like in the short term. I think we'll need to see it more of an overall turnaround from growth stocks in general, but I think it's good news at least today.
Yeah, I'll take it, on a day where everything else is selling off. I guess it's good to see that. How about this implied volatility on Peloton? Like, if you go to a daily chart, this is insane, Tom. Like, these options are crazy. So it's like, if you're new to cash secured puts and you wouldn't mind holding Peloton, it is a good opportunity. It's just, do you want to hold Peloton or not? I mean, at this level, it seems fine, but like you look at that IV, it's at 164%. Tom, you can go out to let's say March 18th of 2022, and let's say you sold like the 25 strike put, which is pretty close. It's basically at the money. You'd get paid $340 for that, and it would only cost you like a $2,500 margin requirement. So it's like you're getting over a 10% return. You're getting over a 10% return to potentially buy Peloton at 25.
Yeah, that's actually insane, Mike. Like I can't believe those type of numbers right now. And this implied volatility, what's it at now? 165%. Like you just almost don't even expect this ever, especially how it's moved over the past like 6 trading days. We went from 100% up to 160% with all this crazy news coming out. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely insane, Mike. And it's going to make it hard to play these call options, like these calls are going to be pretty overpriced here. So I would definitely look at shorting puts if you want Peloton to go up. I think that'll be an amazing way to go, or just get some shares and maybe start selling some covered calls right away. But either way, I think it's a pretty good way to go. And looking at Peloton, Mike, like for the longer term, I think it's at a pretty good level. Like you said, like I said earlier, it's hard to look at stuff in the short term. If we can somehow put ourselves like maybe 1 or 2 years down the line with Peloton, it might look a lot better.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, and then we have Ubi saying, excited for some good call buying potential in the future. The lower it goes, the better it will look for us in the long term. True that, true that. Then we have George saying, did you hear about the $90 billion investment from Intel on new facilities backed by the government, though? I was sure I had commented about it in your last video, but I went there now and it's not there. Intel to invest up to $100 billion in Ohio chip plant. So yeah, I did see that news. I did not look too much into it, but yeah, I mean, that's pretty good news. And the stock's been all over the place over the past couple months, but Tom, I mean, it's performing a lot better than a lot of other companies.
Yeah, it really is, which is good to see. And I'm glad to see it is. They have been talking a lot about developing these new plants, and the government has been really backing Intel over the past couple years. I know that whenever Trump was in office, he was talking about Intel quite a bit as well, saying that we need to get on China's playing field and all that stuff. So we'll have to see how it ends up going, but I hope that Intel goes up. They're making some pretty good investments. I know that they've been like researching and developing a lot of stuff also, and I've even seen rumors that they've been developing like graphics cards. And if they do end up coming out with graphics cards, they'll be really high up there with, I think, AMD, NVIDIA. It might look a lot better for them. So we'll have to see how it ends up going. But I think that if they start coming out with some of the stuff that they've been researching, it can go pretty well. But yeah, those investments in the US are huge also. And, anytime the government's backing a company, it's generally pretty good. Who knows? They might be able to get some tax incentives or something. Like there's lots of different ways they could go with this. And, with how cyber warfare has been going, this is where I know Trump really wanted Intel to make stuff in the US because, obviously if China's making everything, there could be something, going on there. But in the end, it's all about like the keeping your own like country in the game. China has all these companies making chips and stuff. So we just wanted to make sure we were established. And that's really all the government was going at there.
Alrighty, so Tom, I'm looking at some of these Discord messages too, and it looks like we have a couple people talking about Tesla, which is down basically 10% today. It's down, basically 10%. It fell right through 900, right through, it's basically at 950 right now. They have earnings coming up too, and it's crazy, Tom. All this volatility is insane. Like, I don't know, like, if you've been, like, watching cryptos either over the weekend, but, like, even that is going just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I actually was watching the crypto market. And, Mike, I think that there's something going on that, we haven't really touched on too much. And, I think that it's really hurting the international markets as much as our markets. And, we've been seeing lots of stuff going on over there in Ukraine. There's obviously lots of tension right now between Russia and Ukraine. Russia might invade them. Lots of bad stuff's going on. It's causing lots of issues. Like you said, even in the crypto market, we're seeing Bitcoin futures here getting destroyed below 40,000. I know Bitcoin itself is well below 40,000 also. It's insane to see how low stocks are moving, how low Bitcoin's moving. And, I just can't believe all the stuff going on. We have all this high inflation news. We have stuff with Ukraine now. We have, the Feds coming out raising rates. It's like how much worse could the market conditions get at this point? Like we even have like threats of war now. Like, oh, it's not a good time for the market, not a good time for Tesla. Of course, we can see Tesla fell below a major trend line on the chart too. The last time they fell below this trend, they ended up consolidating pretty quickly and coming right back above it. And today it just does not look too good. So we'll have to see how it ends up going. I know there's a major support there around $800. And if we break below that, I think it could get pretty bloody here with Tesla.
Yeah, and I know how you mentioned, like, all of the different reasons with the market falling, but another thing to keep in mind is that when it rains, it pours. So, you have people looking at stocks like at basically any stock right now and saying, oh, if this stock can fall from this to this, then what's stopping it from falling like another 50% or whatever? And then you have people panic selling, and then you have short sellers coming in, and then, you know what I mean? So it's like fear is contagious, and it's important not to underestimate it, because all the selling pressure we're seeing, unfortunately we're seeing some people that claim to be like a long-term investor, yet they'll close their positions just because they fell X%. So we also just have panic, that's also driving the markets lower, whether it be from retail traders or over leveraged funds, because I know there is a ridiculous amount of leverage in the cryptocurrency markets, and that's one reason why it's so volatile.
Yeah, you know what? That's a big point. I know with crypto, sometimes you're able to get, like, I've seen stuff where you're able to get like, what is it, like 1,000% leverage and stuff. Like, I can't believe some of the leverage numbers I've seen on there for crypto. And yeah, I mean, you're right. It definitely causes these major sell-offs. And honestly, it's not good for a lot of retail traders either, because like you said, they might get over leveraged into some of these things. And, I know you can lose your account pretty quickly when you get, 1,000x leverage or whatever it is. But either way, I mean, it's not good to see the sell-off is really accelerating. Like you said, when it rains, it pours. All the bad news is just adding to the fire. And yeah, no one loves to see this. We even have DWAC down another 8%. I mean, Netflix is down again. We even have these bigger stocks. Like, I know everyone talks about the FANG stocks. We even have Amazon here down 1.2%. I mean, it looks like they're coming back up today, but look at them on the daily chart. Like, Amazon's like going into full-on sell-off mode at this point.
Right. Crazy, Tom. I know we have a lot of huge earnings this week, plus Powell, so that can turn things around depending on what Powell says and then how the market reacts to, all of these earnings. But, we have some huge ones coming up. I know we have Logitech after hours today, which, it's going to be big, but it's not going to be huge. But, we have Microsoft, Boeing, Tesla, Apple, McDonald's, MasterCard, Robinhood. Like, there's a lot of giant companies reporting, and like, depending on how they do, it can make the sell-off a lot worse, or it can completely turn it around.
Yeah, it really could. Like, I'm really hoping that some of these companies come in with some decent numbers. I'm sure that some of them will, but like we saw last week, I mean, no one, I don't think, ever expected this with Netflix. I mean, look at this big drop. They were down like 20-something% just in that single day with those bad earnings there in after hours. Like, that was terrible to see for such a huge stock like them. And no one, I don't even think, thought that this was going to be possible to happen with Netflix. Like, look at how they've been moving. honestly, like no one, like if I would have told anybody before this earnings report that I thought Netflix would be down below $400 after the earnings came out, everyone would have thought I was nuts. So looking at Netflix doing this, I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but I'm a little bit worried for these companies like Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, like just all these big companies that are going to be reporting soon. It's going to be pretty scary. Nobody thought Netflix could do that. And, I really hope some of these larger companies hold up better.
But Tom, you know how it is. Like sometimes we'll see a company report bad earnings and then the stock will pop up. And then sometimes they'll report good earnings and the stock will tank down just because of that's how the market is sometimes. So it's like part of you wonders like, all right, let's say we see Microsoft report amazing earnings. They can still just tank down just because the market is just, has that type of sentiment going. So there's definitely a lot of interesting things in stock for us this week.
And a lot of outlooks are getting pretty bad too.
Yeah, true. All right, and then we have Wagner saying, good morning, what is the next support for the SPY? So Tom, what are the next major supports you have for the SPY? And then if you could get a couple resistance levels, that'd be awesome too.
Yeah, the SPY is actually coming up to a huge support. I went ahead and went to the 180-day 4-hour chart so we can see it a little bit better here. But you can see there's an obvious low level down here right around 430, which we're below now. And then right below that, there's another one right around, you could say like 426. So looking at both of these levels, we're getting really close to 426. We might hold that and get like a little bit of a bounce. I will say the SPY has been pretty much straight down, and I would expect a green day to come eventually. So maybe this will be a pretty good support to play. But just keep in mind, we've been just blowing past these supports lately. Like there was a huge support around 450 that we blew through. We blew through the one around 440 as well. And we might be able to blow through 426 at this point. But yeah, just be really careful. I will say maybe watch for a bounce there if you want to do something intraday. But yeah, I wouldn't bet on it too much, Mike. Like looking at this sell-off, I could see it possibly just breaking 426 and going a little bit lower, at least in the shorter term. And we're also below this 1,000 SMA, which is just not a good thing to see.
Gotcha. All right, and then let's take a look at Tesla. We have Ubi asking about it. Tesla is down like 7% or so. Basically everything's falling. So there is a pretty decent support right around 850. The low of day was 852.31. It's bouncing up right now, but then again, it just had a huge drop, and the market's like trying to bounce up. So, Tom, I mean, it's really not looking too good. It doesn't look like too bullish. I mean, anything can happen intraday, but with the selling pressure we've been seeing over like the past couple of weeks, it's like, yes, you want to buy the dip, but then again, it's like, if we're talking about like valuations, like Tesla is trading at like a pretty steep valuation, and the higher rates go, it definitely doesn't help Tesla's situation.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't. And, they've also just fell below a major trend line. Like we can see this blue trend line on my chart has held up for a long time. Like we've had so many bounces off of this trend line where we now just fell below it in a major way. Personally, I don't like this movement at all. We have lower highs here on the daily. I think we're going to see Tesla touch 800 at some point, whether it's this week or maybe next week or something. But I feel like that we will see them come down. They're going to have earnings coming out too, and I don't know how they're going to go. Obviously we've been seeing lots of like bad outlooks lately, and if Tesla has some bad guidance for the next couple of quarters, it might not go too well. But hopefully they come out and they say like, hey, we're expecting good sales with our truck this year or something like that. But if they come out and then they say, well, we might have some production issues, they might sell off like Netflix. So it's kind of 50-50. I know that it's always hard to play earnings, but with the way we're selling off, with the way the lower highs have been going, and just the way it looks, I think I could see it down, especially over the next couple of weeks. But that IV starting to get pretty high even on Tesla. We're almost back to 100%.
Yeah. And plus earnings too. Like who knows with this one? Earnings we all know how earnings are. So yeah, it's a wild one. Then we have Vicky saying, guys, I don't think this is only about rates. Earnings are expected to be excellent. As far as Netflix, they missed 6 out of 8 earnings, so no surprise. I mean, at this point, is also about the potential danger of Russia invading Ukraine. Yeah, it's definitely not about just rising rates. If it was just about rising rates, we wouldn't see growth stocks moving the way they are. There's definitely a lot of other factors weighing into the selling pressure at this point, like you mentioned. As far as Netflix, though, we also have to keep in mind that they did have a pretty rough estimate of their subscriber additions. I believe the market was expecting 6 million subscriber additions in the first quarter of 2022, and they said they only expect I think it was 1.8 or maybe 2 million subscriber additions. So that's a pretty big difference, but that's just one small example. But either way,
it really is, and that's going to be bad, and that might even trickle over into Disney.
yeah. I mean, look at Disney. Like when Netflix reported those earnings, Disney just started tanking, and it's kind of moving with it. So I definitely know what you mean. But at this point, too, like Vicky said, there are multiple factors that are weighing into this selling pressure, and one of them is just straight up panic. You definitely have some people looking at Disney or Netflix or DraftKings or Apple or Tesla or anything right now and saying, should I sell my shares? I'm seeing these news articles saying that we're about to see a 30% stock decline. You know what I mean? So you got to be careful with what you see with the news. But yeah, there's definitely a lot going on right now, Tom.
Yeah, $130 billion wiped off crypto markets in 24 hours as Bitcoin drops. That's just insane to hear. $130 billion. I've also been seeing some crazy numbers come out where apparently Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Bezos apparently have been losing a ton of money as well. Somewhere close to this, I think. I don't know the exact numbers, but they've been losing billions as those stocks have been going down also. And it's just insane to see all these crazy things coming out. Look at this. We actually have ballistic missiles intercepted over Abu Dhabi as U.S. State Department issues an alert. This came out late last night. We're getting some crazy stuff starting to happen, in the news, in the markets, just with everything. And I feel like that it's just a whole bunch of stuff piling on at one time, kind of like what Vicky said. It's not just one single thing. We have so many things happening. And this Wednesday is going to be very important. I know Powell, he's a pretty good cheerleader for the market. Like we talked about earlier, I'm going to really be awaiting this Fed press conference at 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday. I think that's going to be huge. And, it's definitely going to be a big event to look for. So definitely look for that. Hopefully the market can start to turn around at least on Wednesday. But, with all this bad stuff going on, I don't know if Powell can help it this time.
He normally comes in clutch, Tom. We've seen many times where the market will be in the red or there will be a decent amount of selling pressure, and Powell he normally does a pretty good job, but we'll see. Yeah, so just looking at some of these other plays right now, Hunter says it's one thing after another. It definitely is. I know one thing, Tom, I know we already talked about this a little bit, but when stocks fall lower, it kind of is a snowball effect in the way that margin works. So for example, I know with Bitcoin, it's a lot easier to, I guess you could say, relate to because it's so much more volatile. But in margin trading in general, it's pretty common to have 100% margin. So it's let's say you have, I don't know, a $20,000 account. This is just a random example. Let's say you have a $20,000 account and you use margin and then you buy $40,000 worth of Bitcoin. It's if that asset, Bitcoin, falls 50%, you lost your entire account. And when there are margin calls happening, especially in the cryptocurrency market, it just makes the selling that much worse. And the reason I bring this up is to kind of relate it to growth plays. So if we look at Zoom, as an example, this stock fell from, what did I say, 588, was it? Let's see, 588. It fell from 588 down to 142 over the past couple of years. So funds were, or at least some traders were, over leveraged at the top, and then it just causes more and more selling pressure. So when we have all this bad news compounding with fear of rising rates, compounding with, bad news with Russia and Ukraine, it only makes the situation that much worse for people who are already in these stocks where they might have to get margin called and be forced to sell even if they don't want to.
Yeah, that's actually a big deal. A lot of people, like you said, they get forced to sell and they don't want to sell. But whenever you over leverage, sometimes, you can you can get hurt pretty bad. And, we've even seen it happen with funds, like it happened with GME a lot. Whenever GME and AMC were flying up initially, it didn't, a lot of these funds might not have gotten margin called because of how large they are. But in the end, I mean, they were getting pushed out of some of those positions, and that really accelerated that move to the upside. And, it's the same way now to the downside with some of these bigger stocks. And we're going to see that happen. And like you said, Mike, we've been seeing it happen in the crypto market a lot more exponentially just because of, how much more volatility is caused because of how much leverage there really is. Like I said, I mean, some of these crypto websites are giving you like 500 times or 500x, your money on the leverage and stuff like that. Or, well, not 500 times, but like, 5 times leverage, I should say 500%. But yeah, looking at it though, sometimes it's just like they allow way too much leverage, and it honestly really hurts retail traders, Mike, because lots of people just, they say, hey, they're giving me, I have a $10,000 account. They're going to let me trade with 20 grand. I just bought 20 grand of Bitcoin at 60 grand, and now it's at 33 grand. And now I'm getting pushed out, and, it's happening to a lot more people than just you. So just always keep that in mind. And it's a huge deal. I can't believe Bitcoin's down 50% at this point. This is crazy.
Yep. All right. And then we have Daniel saying, what's up, guys? Any favorite plays to the downside today? I like Lucid puts here soon. I think it's one of the unicorns that haven't collapsed yet. So I know Lucid does have a steep valuation. They do have growth potential, but they do have a lot of work to do in order to back up that valuation. So there's give and take with it. With the market moving the way it is, it's a good short, but guys, keep in mind that's with the market moving the way it is. Like I guess you could say last year, or even in 2020, when anything with electric vehicles or solar just exploded through the roof, like it's important to realize those different market conditions. But with everything moving the way it is now, it's a good short. IV is actually not too bad on it. Options are decently priced. I mean, they're definitely not well priced because the IV is 133%, but if you have time, preferably if you're in the money, that would be ideal. But yeah, I mean, it has a pretty steep valuation. In terms of other plays to the downside, I don't necessarily have a favorite right now. I'm really just seeing where the money's flowing. I know that a ton of people are just selling off Neo today. That stock is getting absolutely destroyed. It's down 13%, but at this point, it's probably not worth the short intraday. Some other plays that are taking a pretty big hit. I mean, poor Enphase, but I do like that one for the long term. What else do we have moving? Let's see. I mean, Tesla's not looking bad. It's just they have earnings soon, and that's going to kind of throw off the pattern. I've been watching chip stocks for a while, and yeah, I would say those are the main ones right now, and then some of the ARK stocks.
Yeah, I'm honestly looking at a lot of those ARK stocks as well, like Zoom and stuff like that. If they just continue to fall lower and just continue to break below supports, like Zoom just fell below 150 on Friday, and now it's not moving too well again today, down 3%. I'll definitely be looking for them. Like if they fall below 140 here, it could make for a pretty good short, I think, especially intraday, kind of like what we're seeing with Lucid. Lucid just broke below that low of day at 35, and hopefully continues a little bit lower. I think that playing some of these for puts in the shorter term will definitely be the way to go also. And I could see Lucid falling. I actually really like Lucid, but with the way the market's moving and with the way they're moving down, if they fall below this support around 33.50, they're going to really sell off. And I think that they could even end up back towards like $25 if that happens. So I'll definitely be watching Lucid as well. I think that's a pretty good one to the downside. And I know some of my favorites to the downside, Mike, are like AMD. I've really been eyeing this one up to the downside for a long time. They've been hovering right around this $140 mark forever. And whenever they confirmed off of that a couple weeks ago and got rejected right back down, it's never turned back around. It's been like 4 or 5 straight down huge red days for them, kind of like the S&P 500. And it's just not looking good. And like we said, though, it might not be good to enter right now intraday because of how low they already are. But I would definitely look for it to break the lows again tomorrow, because I could see AMD possibly retesting $100 now that we're below 110.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, Tom. Crazy stuff. So we have Vicky saying, let's not forget that the NASDAQ fell 22% from September of 2021 through December of 2021. We're almost there. It was brutal, but the market recovered back then, and it will this time too. Yeah, it should recover. I mean, it always has. It's just a matter of how long it takes. So looking at the QQQ, yes, it has definitely had some big downtrends in the past, and it has recovered every time. So hopefully we get a turnaround soon. Hopefully Powell steps in. Hopefully some of these earnings are better, and hopefully it's the ultimate dip buying opportunity. But we'll see. There have been. I'm actually really glad Tom brought this up. So we could see on the charts that Tom has, there have been like multiple points where downtrends can last a couple months or even a couple of years. So it's like, even though we're seeing a sell off now, that doesn't mean that we're gonna bounce back to all-time highs within the next 2 months. It can. It's just important to realize that sometimes it's not that quick.
Yeah, sometimes it goes pretty slow. Like, I'll actually zoom in on the chart. We'll go back to like the China situation in 2018. I know every situation's different and people are going to argue that, but you could almost argue that with the situation we're in now, it's almost worse. So looking at the way we moved back then, we fell down for like 3 or 4 months, and then it took 4, 5, 6 months before we finally retested that high and then finally broke it. We honestly consolidated there for like almost, I would say almost a whole year after the drop. So before we finally started getting a good breakout. So yeah, sometimes it can definitely take a while. It's not always going to be as explosive as the past few years. We have to realize that whenever COVID happened, the Fed's policy was so easy for the market that it just allowed for so much growth to happen. Like they had rates were at 0.25% for like almost a year straight, probably longer than that. And, that just was a totally unexpected thing to happen. Obviously COVID hurt the market for those few months, but the Fed's easy policy stuck around way longer than I think people expected. And the market went on a huge uptrend. And just keep in mind that, as the Fed starts to raise rates and as they start to stop their purchasing of bonds and stuff like that, the market's it's not going to be as easy to move as it has the past few years. It's probably going to start slowing down. Like honestly, this has been so explosive that it's been like making records, and it's honestly been going so crazy that lots of people haven't even been able to fathom how much like some of these indices have risen. So, I could definitely see it starting to slow down, especially with the Fed stopping such an easy policy.
Yep, we'll see. We have Ubi saying, or just mentioning Corsair. Yeah, this one honestly has been holding up pretty well besides today. Over the past couple months, like of course growth stocks have been struggling, but Corsair has been kind of at least like flatlining for like a month or so, but today it kind of changed that trajectory. It's down 10%. It's selling off in a major way. It looks like there was a lot of sellers that came in right after that 20 support break, Tom. Like, it was holding up that 20 support very well, but right when we broke that, it was just, it was horrible.
Yeah, you're right. That 20 support was holding up in a pretty major way. We can see it had been bouncing there ever since like mid-December. And yeah, I was really hoping 20 would end up holding, but yeah, you're right. Today it fell right through there. I'm holding some Corsair shares, so it's definitely not good for me in the shorter term. But I really like Corsair. Like you said, it's been holding up a little bit better than these other stocks have, especially better than like Zoom and Peloton and stocks like that. But yeah, I really like them personally. And I know that Logitech reports earnings today after the bell, and they're kind of selling off as well. Logitech just fell below their $80 support, which they were also holding ever since November. So that sucks to see for them. And if Logitech has good earnings, and like let's say that more people were buying computer parts than expected or something, they might get a pretty good pop back up. And I would think Corsair might move in sympathy with Logitech because they're both pretty popular. And they're kind of in that same sector, kind of like how Disney's going down with Netflix in sympathy. I would think that Corsair might do well if Logitech's earnings come in. But I will say, Mike, since it broke $20, I hate to see that. And I hate to say it, but personally, since that happened, I could see it going lower in the shorter term.
Yep, we shall see. And then we have Sam saying coin is down big today. Let's take a look. COIN. Yeah, I was actually reading about this one too. As cryptos are tanking, it looks like coin is taking a major hit too. This stock was at like $430 a couple months ago, Tom. Now it's at $166. So wow, I mean,
I can't believe we fell below that huge support at 200, Mike. Like I thought 200 or 205 would end up holding, but wow, I mean it's way below some of these levels, and man, I can't believe I know some of those cash secured puts are going to be crazy right now.
oh yeah, I mean the IV just went from 60% up to 100% in like a couple weeks, so that is also pretty big. Also, if we went to like some of Coin's cash secured puts, if you went out to March and let's say you went to, I don't know, let's say you went to like the 150 strike put because the stock is pretty low, and let's say you wanted to buy the dip, the 150 strike put will pay you like $1,500 right now. So it's like another 10% return for like 50 calendar days to potentially buy this stock at 150, and it's currently trading at 165.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It probably will hit 150 in the end, but yeah, I think that's definitely a good really good, at least a good strategy to look at, especially since these stocks are already so low. And the thing I'm worried about, Mike, is, people have probably been looking at Coinbase and they've probably been saying, well, look, we're getting close to the 200 support. So I'm going to start, shorting some puts here around 200. And, I'm sure a lot of people have been doing that already. And like, let's say for a lot of people who might already be in some like cash secured puts, would you say like rolling over their 200s would be better? Or do you think like maybe exiting that and then starting to get the ones around 150 would be a better way to go?
Well, it ultimately depends. Like, if you're really bullish on the company, you can just keep rolling out the 200s for however long you want. That's what I do if I'm bullish on the company. But if you're not extremely bullish on the company, what you can do instead is you can lower your strike price, but you wouldn't quite go down to 150 because ultimately you want to make sure that you're getting paid more of a premium each time you roll over. Because if you don't do that, then really it's kind of, it doesn't make it a win-win position, So maybe you roll the 200 strike puts that you're currently short into like the 180 strike puts. You know what I mean? You could do something like that. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely a really good question, Tom, because there's not really like a right or wrong answer. It just ultimately depends on, how bullish or bearish you are.
Yeah, and I know, I'm sure a lot of people are getting caught in, a lot of these things lately, like Zoom, like it's been going down. It looked like it was forming a pretty good support around 175. I'm sure a lot of people, maybe not, us specifically, but, I know some people have definitely been shorting some puts here, maybe on Zoom, maybe on Netflix, even it before the big drop and, all these crazy things. And, it sucks to see these stocks moving like this. I'm sure people are getting caught in some pretty bad positions here. And, obviously, if you're bullish on the company for the long term, you'll be fine. And, just keep in mind that whenever you enter cash secured puts, you have to realize that sometimes it's a longer term game, and you have to understand sometimes that you have to hold these positions. You might have to roll it out for 6 months until it finally comes back. Sometimes that does happen. And, I know that we always talk about it a lot, Mike, where, it sounds so easy sometimes trading cash secured puts because you get put in these win-win situations. And, even if you're down on something like Netflix right now, as long as it comes back and you're rolling it out, you'll be fine. So just keep in mind, it's always a longer term game when you're shorting these cash secured puts. I know lots of people have been trying to like short puts to, like, a lot of people will hear that, Mike, and then they'll go to AMC and then they'll say, oh, well, I'm going to short AMC puts then at $15 and see how it goes, and collect my premium. But then, you're getting stuck into like a questionable company, down here for the longer term. And as long as you're bullish on them, it'll be fine. But, just keep in mind that the company has to come back or else you can get caught pretty bad.
Yep. All right, Tom, well, do you have any last minute input before we wrap up the stream?
I think just the main thing is just keep watching the news, guys. Lots of crazy stuff has been going on. Like we've been saying all morning, there's just stuff stacking up on top of each other, from rates rising to inflation to now Ukraine fears. So really watch those situations with Ukraine. I think that's going to be pretty big. We're starting to see a pretty accelerated sell-off, and I've seen lots of crazy rumors. Like apparently rumors of like the US possibly sending some troops, maybe some airplanes and, stuff like that over there. But we'll have to see how it ends up going. Obviously, it's not a good situation for the world, for the markets, or for anything. So hopefully that situation gets resolved sooner rather than later. But definitely not looking good in the SPY. If we break below 425, I'll definitely look at more puts today. But I will say it looks like we're forming a pretty good intraday bottom, so maybe we'll see a little bit of a recovery at least for the next like hour or so.
Alrighty, well, thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. The market has been brutal. Thank you guys so much for joining. And before we wrap it up, I just want to thank everyone for joining. So thank you so much, Mike, Hunter, George, Vicky, Spacely, Martha, J-Deep, Ubi, Wagner, Vicky, and I think we got Daniel. Thank you, Sam, for joining. Thank you guys so much for joining. We hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and hopefully this market pops up. So, again, thank you guys so much for joining, and have a great day.